fantasy so much that we share it with you on this show. In today's episode, we'll be discussing 4 poems by the same author, Marcia, LeBeau. But before we do that, we'll do a round of who we've got with us and where they are. So I'm Kathleen Volk-Miller, and I am here in my office at Drexel, 5036 McAllister, to be exact. Don't come hurt me or anything, but you can send me love notes, postcards, that kind of thing, T-shirts, whatever it is, I'll advertise for it, I promise you. I direct the graduate program in publishing and co-edit Tricks of Painted Bread Quarterly with Marian and Jason. And with me in the office today is Tim Fitz.
Hi, I'm Tim Fitz, and I've been reading with the Painted Bride Quarterly this is my 4th year, and I'm the author of Hypothermia.
Woohoo!
And the upcoming short story collection, Go Home and Cry for Yourselves, with the Xavier Review Press.
Woohoo!
And sitting next to me is Cherie, which I was... Sitting across from me is Kathleen.
Yeah, and we don't have Joe in the studio today. Today we have Ryan. There, he's waving at you. You can't see him, but you're missing out, let me tell you. Cherie, what do you have to say other than you look great in blue?
Thank you. I just discovered I look great in blue. My name is Cherie DeVos, and I am the editor assistant and digital communications co-op here at DPG, DBQ. I've been here for 8 weeks or 9 weeks now.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's lovely. I am a junior here at Drexel, majoring in international area studies with minor in Spanish and all that good stuff.
Awesome. And we have Marian with us today, and she's calling from somewhere else in the world. We're going to start playing Where in the World is Marian Wren? Hi, Mare.
Hi, I am on my way back to the U.S. very slowly by way of a conference called Nonfiction Now in Reykjavik, Iceland. So I'm in Iceland, calling y'all, and I am delighted at the signal. Like, I can hear you all perfectly, which is amazing. And I just happened to be sitting at the conference and chatting with Erica Meitner, our friend Erica Meitner from VQR, who directs the MFA program at Virginia Tech and sends her big love to the editors, and particularly to Jason Schneiderman, who is celebrating a birthday. Happy birthday, Jason.
And Erica has been a guest host on this podcast.
Yes, she has. Absolutely. Jason, I wasn't on Facebook yet today. I didn't know it was your birthday.
I know, because that's the real world, right? I've been on Facebook. It didn't happen. Yes, I am in my office at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. Classes are over, but I still have work to do, even though it's not on student papers or teaching right now. And it is my birthday, and I just got the most wonderful birthday present, which is that I just found out about this on Instagram. Apparently, Smoke Signals Barbecue in Toronto has posted my poem on this beautiful light board, and they've posted a number of poems by other people, other poets, and I'm just kind of I'm really moved.
Which poem, Jason?
The Tension of the Water.
Oh, nice.
Oh, sorry, The Surface of the Water. Nice. I should actually know the title of my own poems. It's The Surface of the Water.
Lovely.
Okay. I'll be the first to admit it, but the expressions in the office let me know I am not alone. Posted on a light board? What?
At a barbecue restaurant.
What are we talking about?
There's a brick wall, and then there's a board, almost like a movie marquee, with about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 lines of text, and it's 2 boards next to each other. And they've posted a lot. There's an Anne Carson poem that's been up there, an Ocean Vuong poem, Neil Hilborn, Aziza Barnes, a lot of really great people to be in the company of.
And where is this?
It is. I believe it's a restaurant called Smoke Signals Barbecue in Toronto.
Nice. In Toronto. And they didn't have to ask your permission.
Yes, books. It seemed. I don't know if they knew it was my birthday or not.
Did they have to ask your permission?
No. I mean, I guess maybe they did. But no, people don't really do that. I did. There was this one time where someone reprinted the entirety of a poem of mine, and it was an attack on the award that the poem had received, and it was this whole story about how terrible this poem was, and how I should never have been given this award, and how the judge should be.
Shit.
It literally said she should be thrown out into the street. Which was such a weird phrasing. It was like
she was definitely eating bad shit.
Yeah, and I would have been within my rights, like my copyrights, to say you may not print the entire poem.
Right.
But I didn't, because I am an information anarchist to a very large extent, and I sort of believe that it's okay to kind of, do things like that. But years later, I was putting together a panel, and I actually tried to contact the person who had written it on the panel to talk about attacking me. And the person had retracted it.
Oh.
The article had been retracted because I went to the journal.
Jason, what's her name? Kathy Griffin?
No, it was not. It was not Kathy Griffin. Although I will say, you cannot joke about killing the president. That is not acceptable. You can't do that.
Yeah. Too little, too late for Kathy.
I mean, I feel very bad, but I also do feel like I don't know, someone on the left should also say, like, there are standards. Like you may not.
I think people are saying it. I think no one wants to go down that road.
I've seen a lot of defenses. Did
you hear who actually dropped her as their what do you call it? Like their spokesperson?
Yeah.
Squatty Potty.
No.
I swear to you. She was going to be a spokeswoman for Squatty Potty, and they have dumped her because of this controversy. Yeah.
Shouldn't that be like an enhancement? Like, shouldn't like
the world? I mean, we couldn't write this shit, right? We could not write this.
No way.
Any of it.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's get to it. I think we're warm. Fingers are flexed. Voices are vocal. We have 4 poems by Marcia LeBeau, and I think we should jump right in. Anybody want to read the first one? Instead of? Okay. I'll jump in to keep it going. Instead of cornering Jericho Brown by the wine and cheese after his talk on racism, I whispered to him in my head. That's the title. I'm going to give it to you again. Instead of cornering Jericho Brown by the wine and cheese after his talk on racism, I whispered to him in my head. I tell him, when my teenage godson cries, there is no sound, just tears sliding down his black cheeks from an invisible faucet while he stares at me, unblinking. Sometimes when his face is wet and he wipes it with the neck of his bright white t-shirt, I think of how my son's t-shirts have never been that white. At school drop-off, I can't tell if the black caretaker of a black kid is a nanny or a mom. I always know whether the white caretaker of a white kid is a nanny or a mom. When my godson's mother died, we found it buried in a police blotter. Colon quote. Black female between ages 20 to 30, found by joggers at attorney in Houston in East River. Unquote. After years of my brother dating black women, I want him to date someone white. I feel like he is rejecting me, my mom, himself. The little black girl asks what color my eyes are. Blue, I tell her. When she laughs and screams, weird, her mother slaps her across the face. Jericho looks at me, leans in and whispers, slavery was a bad idea. That's it.
Well read, you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move right in, and I just have questions about the genealogy of this in a way, meaning like the speaker's got a teenage godson, but when the godson mother dies in the scene of the poem, right? That it's, the speaker sort of moved to want to speak, but then doesn't, and instead imagines it's conversation. I get a little bit tangled up in the who's who in the poem though. When my teenage godson cries, right? So there's the speaker, and the speaker's got a godson.
Right.
And then sometimes his face is right. I think of my own son's t-shirts, right? So the speaker has sons, but then we're back out to the godson's mother who died.
Right.
Okay. Right. And then years after of my brother dating Black women. Okay. So it's peopled with a lot of figures. And I have a little difficulty tracking the spiral of characters.
Okay. So you're saying that as a criticism.
Yeah, and also an invitation for someone to explain it to me. Easier than I'm making it. Like, is it really just super straightforward, or am I just getting lost?
So to describe how the poem looks on the page, it's kind of fuller stanzas, almost sentencey, but we've got, lines. The lines are wide, and there's a mixture of stanzas. We've got 3, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1. And the whole I tell him chunk is italicized, right? And we pull back out when Jericho looks at me, leans in, and whispers, right? So
I think like the second stanza is really beautiful, and kind of the whiteness and the skin, I think is like really sort of deftly handled.
mm-hmm.
In the third stanza, I don't know. I start losing it because I know, okay, so this happens all the time, right? This is like structural racism, that if you are a Black woman taking care of children, then you are often assumed to be a nanny. And this is less frequent when you're white, but I also know a lot of white women who complain about being mistaken for the nanny. And like, I'm really like, for some reason, like that thing, I always know whether the white caretaker of a white kid is a nanny or a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I hear from a lot of white people when this conversation comes up that they're misrecognized. Like I don't trust that there.
What I thought was odd is I guess it's the same thing. Why the Black caretaker of a Black kid, why you would know and then not know. I don't understand it. I simply don't understand.
Oddly, on the drive here, I was going down Market Street or Walnut Street. I saw a woman pushing a baby cart. And the first thing I thought of was, that's a nanny. Like, for some reason, it was just, I just thought.
You just sensed it. Were they the same color, the baby and the mom?
I couldn't see the baby.
You couldn't see the baby.
But I just thought that's a nanny. It was a white woman, but I just thought it was funny. But I'm a dad, so, I go to I'm just emerging from taking kids to the playgrounds a lot. They're off that, but you get pretty good at spotting who the nannies and who the parents are, and that's sort of automatic.
But what is the relevance of that in the context of this poem? No, not of your story, of that
right.
stanza in this poem. Why is she telling us about this?
Because Black people are constantly assumed to be in service positions, like especially when they're not. That like if you walk in on, Natasha Salye tells a story about walking in on a student-teacher conference, and she just immediately starts talking to the older white man as the instructor, but actually the younger Black woman was the instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That kind of microaggression.
Okay,
right?
so it's the fact that you can't tell with the Black people, and she can tell with the white people.
Well, I think that she's acknowledging that she's, well, I don't know. I was going to say, I think that she's acknowledging microaggression, but I don't think she is, because she's like, that's what I find really like I find it very strange that she insists on that knowledge when it seems like so much, when I think the poem is strongest when it's acknowledging what she doesn't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So wait, Jason, I want to just point to that stanza for a little bit longer, because I think if I'm understanding what you're saying, I always know whether the white caretaker of a white kid is a nanny or a mom, is both like the speaker's being both really bold, but also contradictory in that it's like committing the very act of the sort of structural racism that she's like wanting to point at, right? Which is, I always know that the white caretaker of a white kid is a nanny or a mom, when that might not actually be the case. Exactly as you said, she's insisting on knowledge that she doesn't have, right? And I guess that's part of like the queasy making quality of the poem that I think the poet's after, right? This the the heaving seas of this, right? Where you think you're understanding what people's places are and then not. And then the stanza for me that's also a little bit like I don't know, like kind of like jangles in my ears. When my godson's mother died, comma, we found it buried in a police line break blotter. And the it in that line bugs me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because
definitely.
I don't that pronoun's like wild and not in a great way. Like it's pointing back to the beginning of the sentence, pointing forward to the rest of the sentence. And it's pointing to what? Like a line in a police blotter, like black female.
Well, you think the antecedent is mother, but its antecedent is actually the article.
Exactly.
But you're never given the word article, you just have it.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, again, part of the queasy making quality of the poem. And then if the queasiness is the point, then spot on. But there's something about the way the poem's like rolling forward that I'm not quite trusting in the intention of those queasy moments, right? Like the intentionality of, is that meant to make me cringe?
Well, each stanza is an incident, right? Each stanza is about something else, even though the godson reappears and his mother reappears. It's, this happened, when my teenage godson cries, at school drop-off, when his mother died, after years of my brother dating black women, and then this whole other separate scene. Yeah. So we've got, all these separate anecdotes that she's dropping on Jericho Brown.
And I mean, I think there's an interesting thing about like as the whiteness kind of emerges through the poem, the idea of cornering Jericho by the wine and cheese takes on a really different valence, right? Because part of the ongoing difficulty and structural ways in which racism continues to assert itself is through kind of white people making it about themselves, right? And so if a white person corners Jericho after his talk on racism and is like making it structurally about themselves by taking up his time, right? Then it's kind of undoing the work that he's doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that this poem is doing enough to kind of decenter that structural power system. And so that comes up again with the godson's mother, right? So she stays anonymous, right? I mean, the problem with this being in a police blotter is the way in which the deaths of women of color are normalized, regularized, and anonymized.
Right.
And I don't know if this calls attention to it or if it enacts it.
Maybe
and then followed directly by kind of, like the admission of racism, right? Like the admission of white identification, that I want my brother to be with white people because white people look like me and my mother, right? Like,
I kind of like the awkwardness with which they deal with racism. I mean, that's an awkward thing to deal with when you're white. I mean, for me, growing up in Alabama, there was like one black kid in the city. And then I live in areas with African Americans. It took me a while to not talk to black people like a white person.
Yeah, but it's awkward for white people and it's fatal for black people, right? Like,
well, right. But so this reflects. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it does a pretty good job of portraying that awkwardness.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like she might be taking on too many issues. Shree, what do you think?
Okay. So I'm sitting here, speaking of awkwardness, looking very awkward because of this fear of being like the black representative speaking about racism in a poem. But so reading this, I was very confused. I'm just like, what are you trying to say here? But Jason, you were saying something about whether it's like trying to decenter I don't know. I'm not sure if it was like being white and talking about racism. I'm not sure, but I feel like it's not it's not meaning to decenter. I think that the purpose of the poem is to state that a lot of people are racist despite their relations. So this person, you know, she's going through all of these scenarios and saying, I have a black godson. Like, oh, wow, you must not be racist. You have a black godson. You know, you love him a lot. His mother died. And then there's still these statements that reinforce that, like, okay, just because you're white and you have black relations, you have a black sister-in-law, black godson, doesn't mean that you're not racist. And I think that this is what this is trying to say, is like a confession. Because I mean, it makes me think of also, you know, that scenario when people say, well, I can't be racist because I have tons of black friends. That's a lie. So I think that this is what like the purpose is here. When you see like this person, like it sounds at first like, it's at first read, it sounds like the speaker is, I guess, like speaking out like against racism. But I really think that the purpose is to show that like so many more people are racist and don't realize it, or just are hesitant to admit it.
Well, I think everybody's inherently racist a little bit.
Inherently?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the human experience is discovering areas where you find out these, you might behave in a way, or one might behave in a way where they're not intentionally racist, but then they find out it is, and then you have to confront this reality. Yep. So is what I'm doing offending people? And then you can either say, and then you need an avenue out. You need to be able to say, okay, I got to stop thinking this way. I got to consider this other point of view. And then the people accusing you of racism need to understand that your heart's in the right place, and that you are willing to confront this issue and correct it. So there has to be this dialogue going on between people, and less judgmentalism about the issues. Unless the people are being, when you're overtly racist and your intention is to hurt people, that's a completely different issue. But I find, for instance, again, I grew up in Alabama, and I was at a friend's house in high school, and our friend referred to black people as colored. And my friend's mom was absolutely mortified. She said, how could you talk like that? And I said, oh, I thought I was saying the nice thing. And I turned out I was just from Alabama.
Yeah.
But I didn't say it anymore after that.
Yeah.
Because then I had to make an adjustment, but my heart was not to hurt people.
And I think that's definitely the point. Like, this woman is racist at heart, but like doesn't mean to be. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So like even goes all the way back to the end where slavery is a bad idea. Jericho says. Jericho looks at me, leans in, and whispers, slavery was a bad idea. So like not only was it a bad idea because of how like white people now will be like, some will be racist at heart and not know it. Like this woman, the speaker. And then for black people today also, because when you even look all the way back to the beginning of the poem, this is like one of the first things that stuck out to me when her teenage godson cries, there's no sound. So even that containment of emotion, that kind of thing, crying like, what does it say? Tears coming down like a faucet. So clearly very, very moved, crying, but there's no sound. So there's this lack of showing emotion, which is a clear result of slavery and oppression and everything like that, seen in the white population as well as in the white population. So I don't know. I think it was a little difficult to see where this poem was going after when I read it. Just like,
what do you think about that last stanza, or this, I guess, penultimate or third to last stanza about the little black girl getting smacked for calling her blue eyes weird?
I was trying to figure out why, like, what that means for this poem. Like, why does that fit? I don't really.
Well, the little black girl thinks of the white woman as an other, right?
Right.
So that's I think that's all it means. She's not used to seeing blue eyes. She thinks it's weird.
But I mean, the smack is important.
The smack is really important because the black mother is also trying to make her daughter not be racist. Right. The kid was just being honest, but it could be interpreted as racist, right? Yeah. Weird is not weird. It's different, right? It's different, not weird. But she smacked her because it was such an awkward situation for the little girl to do that.
So what do you think that the speaker is trying to say by including that?
the struggle that we have with racism, that everybody would rather think of themselves as not, but it's tricky. You know?
Can I point out that racism is spelled wrong in the title?
No.
What?
No, you're right.
Well, none of us noticed that.
Racism.
Racism.
Yeah. So
Racism.
I want to
Maybe she's drinking.
I want to come back to Cherie's reading of the poem too, and link it back to what Tim was saying. Like if there was a sense of the speaker coming to awareness of her own complicity, right? Like if the speaker was getting a smack in the face too, right? For other, like being in the process of othering, there would be this like meta level, right? Like the poem would be about a coming to awareness of the way we're caught in these structures, but that doesn't seem like that awareness is the point here, right? And instead it's sort of like performing a kind of ongoing stuckness in it, right? At least that's my reading of the poem. And I do wonder about that title, right? Like if the title is so descriptive in setting the moment, but it doesn't give us a sense of the speaker's understanding truly of the moment, right? It's just scene and go.
I mean, I kind of wanted to, the more time I spent with this poem, the more I kind of wanted that apparatus of Jericho giving the talk and of Jericho talking at the end. And I don't know if that's imagined at the end or if that's something he actually said. But it seemed to me like it doesn't need that framing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a more interesting poem if it isn't framed, by kind of, the framing feels false to me. Like these are to make it into a silent confession to someone talking about race felt instrumentalizing to me.
Yeah.
Like it puts Jericho in this position that I'm not. I don't know quite how to say it, but I felt like all of these observations are critical for the poet to have, and it feels like this is not a necessary apparatus to kind of place them inside of. That the nesting feels wrong to me.
I agree with you, Jason, except I like the idea that every time Jericho Brown gives a talk anywhere, some white woman comes up and gives him her confessional. I love that. This is something that just weighs on anybody's neck who talks in this way.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are the types of people who like run diversity programs and like introduce children to racism.
Right.
I see elementary kids all the time. All the kids playing from different races, they could care less about it. Then by third or fourth grade, they introduce some diversity committee, and now everybody hates each other, or starts talking about their differences, and suddenly they know their difference. Yeah, I like this. I really love that image of him after just having someone come over and unload on them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the way it's constructed in the poem, that does bother me. Exactly what you said, Jason, but I do like also that, it comes.
Guys, I think that because we have 4, we should settle this thing.
Yes.
And do a virtual arm wrestle here and vote. Okay, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, vote. Okay, Marcia, we've got 3 more tries because that one did not get in. So I'm only laughing because of facial expressions here in the office. We'll ignore them for now, and we'll move on to a very different poem. I guess I should have noted that in the beginning. All 4 of these poems are very different tone, format, everything about them. And you'll know that right away because the next one is called Ode to Flossing. And it actually really is. I know, Ode to Flossing. Who would like to read this one?
I'll read it.
Great.
Okay. Ode to flossing. If there were an award for flossing, I would work toward it. Pull the string from its dainty plastic box every chance I got just to hear the zoop zoop snap beneath the silver tooth that razors it full. I'd work it through my oral crevices until I tasted salt and my spit ran red, reminiscing about how they sewed my best friend's wedding dress with white floss when her breasts became engorged enough on the big day to bust the strap. I'd wonder why it always lands on the edge of our silver trash can, dangling like a suicide mission. The owner, too tired to notice. The next observer, too disgusted. Oh, thin nylon filament of my evening. 50 meters rolled of joy. Don't ever try to tempt me with a floss wand. I'd prefer the magic of cutting off my finger's circulation with twisted plastic ribbon. Thank you. In fact, I'd make floss brownies and eat them until the cops showed up and asked me to come with them. And why don't nice girls like you eat apples? That's what I'd do for the flossing award, so just back off, Dr. Smiley. I don't want your 6-month postcard, your fake birthday wishes, and your sad bag of toothpaste, toothbrush, and dare I say it, floss. If you don't believe, after all our years together, that I do my best for my incisors, canines, bicuspids, and molars, let me spit in your bowl and no more.
Thank you.
So wait, listen. I'm doing a little bit of traveling here, and my luggage got lost for the last 3 days.
No.
It just arrived this morning, and Lord help me, I sat down, read this poem, stood up, and flossed. I was like, I can open my suitcase, and there is floss in there, and I'm going to floss. So thank you. So thank you, poet, Marcia, poet.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think the tone is consistent and keeps with the premise. This extreme flossing is amusing. I think we should make a reality show.
Can I break off for a second and offer people a little information about flossing?
I don't think I can stop you, Tim Pitts.
I learned at the dentist office the other day, because I always worry when I floss and I go up too high and it starts to hurt, that I'm going to damage my gums. And
Sure.
they said, go as high as you want, because actually when you start to damage the tissue, it makes the gums grow to the teeth. So if you're forcing it, you can force it a little bit. You're not going to you're not going to cause your gums to recede more. You're just going to cause them to hold faster. So when you're flossing, everybody,
get in there.
Bleed.
Wow.
So I want to jump in and say, when I read this poem, I was reminded of Jennifer Knox's poem called Ode to the New Girl in the Office.
Yeah.
Which has...
Run your Belinda, run!
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Run your Belinda, run. Right. Oh, whirling calliope of daisiness. Right. Like it's that, but Ode to the New Girl in the Office, when it does this moment of like, I forget exactly what the line is, but it pauses and it makes that sort of declarative, like, sense making, awesome, like marveling at the very thing you're, writing about. Made me think about this poem's line breaks in not the best way, which is to say the poem like sits wide across the page.
Yep.
And it's super fun to read it, but I do not understand the line breaks so much so that as I was reading it, I was almost imagining it as a prose poem. Like I wanted them to be sentences that read as sentences in a paragraph rather than sentences that were breaking at the end of the line. And I wonder what anybody else had to say or thought about the line breaks.
I think the lines are too long to have the kind of enjambments that she's forcing. Mm-hmm. So if there were an award for flossing, I would work towards it, period, pull, line break, the string. Mm-hmm. So that can be a really powerful line break, right? To break the verb from its object. Mm-hmm. But if your line is that long, the line, you're not shaping to the line. You're not shaping the phrase to the line or the line to the phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of a line break feels awkward rather than, kind of pushing you forward or creating a kind of extra set of emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
I like where it goes in terms of being angry that her dentist doesn't believe her, that she takes care of her teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that Simpsons episode where the dentist asks Lisa if she's flossing and she says yes, and he looks up and screams, "Why must you make my office a house of lies?"
No, that's great.
But, in like very dramatic con kind of cinematography. But I like that this is sort of ultimately directed towards this disbelieving dentist. That it's ultimately kind of this person who's criticizing her, and that all of this is really kind of a self-defense.
Yeah. And her love for it is really funny. I guess my only logistic question was, I don't think the cops would come if you ate brownies with floss in them.
Oh.
Who would notify the cops? Why would they care?
Yeah,
I didn't understand when the cops came, although the line was funny. Why don't nice girls like you eat apples?
Well, speaking of Jen Knox, do you know the story about when her dog ate a ball of yarn? And they had to pull out the yarn. So floss brownies made me think about that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, once it hit thin nylon filament of my evening, I kind of bailed. I really liked the first stanza because once it's too disgusted, I'm standing in the bathroom looking at the trash can at least 100,000 nights looking. There's always, that's such a great image.
Yeah,
every
that's
time
a great
you see
image.
It's fresh. You're seeing that and you're thinking, my God, what's on that? Who did it? This disgusting piece of, it's great. And so on both sides, because sometimes you hit the trash can, you're like, and then when you see it from the other side, it's such a selfish thing to do and see that it's silly, but it's still not too silly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also have, I mean, let's not stray too far from the engorged breasts, because that's a great image too, because someone at the wedding, their breasts are bulging out of the dress, which kind of implies that
she's preggers.
She's pregnant, right? And so that adds this other layer that's kind of interesting to it. Yeah. And then that really nice image is completely distant once you get to the cops busting somebody over eating. See, you're out. I'm out.
Floss brownies.
Yeah. But I love and then I wonder if the line breaks would be an issue if it was that short, or if they could just then be stretched out a little bit.
Yeah. Right.
Or just
I want to jump in on the floss and sewing and the cleavage, right? Because on one hand, the poet's making there's a very specific note there that your gums bleed when you're pregnant, right? So that's kind of like a funny little aside, mm-hmm. right? But then the floss brownies is just kind of wacky and surreal that hits a different tone, in the scale of this poem, which does feel like it's running the scales a bit, right? In this sort of wacky monologue to this dentist, right? And so I would say, in fact, right, these first two poems are in this sort of like monologue vein, right, of sort of speaking to an implied audience, either the dentist or Jericho, right, the sort of the dream of Jericho.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with everything you guys are saying, but so many images are great. And I think we will actually recall the sad bag of toothpaste. You're never going to get that little bag again.
I can't tell you what joy, I am not being sarcastic right now. I love the bag of toothpaste and the toothbrush and the floss. But
don't you think the next time you get one, you're going to think of it as a sad bag?
No, I love that bag.
A sad bag of toothpaste, toothbrush.
I feel so guilty when I get that bag.
Why?
Because for all the years that I didn't take care of my teeth,
Oh.
And I just every time I get it, I feel like
I think we might remember the engorged breasts. Definitely going to remember the trash can, the floss hanging out of the trash can, the sad bag. You know, I think she's a good writer. I just want to say that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we should vote because we have two more.
Okay.
You don't need to point out the fluff, right?
All right. Are we going to vote?
Yeah.
Shall we? Okay. 1, 2, 3, vote. All right, Marcia. We still have two more tries that did not get in, but we are now about to read Letter to Myself at 80.
Yay.
Jason, would you do this? I nominate Jason.
And I'm excited about this one because I can tie a cherry stem in a knot with my mouth. I taught myself to do it after that episode of Twin Peaks, which was in the 90s. But I was at a party recently and I confirmed that I actually still can do it. So I'm very excited about this poem because it gives me a chance to describe my own talents. Okay.
Yeah.
Letter to Myself at 80. I hope you know you're still lovely. With a tongue that cannot a maraschino cherry stem, then turn the world straight. Your wrinkled branches remain for you to dance in the wind. Remember, on your most ragdoll of days, you are holy. But why am I telling you this? Surely you know more now than I do. And you would tell me, with your gold fusion sarcasm, take it easy, girl. Slow down. Enjoy the ride, because it's all a mid-afternoon spin with the top down, the sun spraying you with dynamite. Remember that day in summer when your oldest boy was less than 1? The way you lay in the crabgrass, legs and arms skyward with him resting on your hands and feet, flying while you hated what your life had become. But you laughed and laughed with that creature, both finding your way in the kingdom. That's how it works. Sucking life into your bones. What the hummingbirds always knew.
So can we vote now?
I'm already voting. What I'm doing in here.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Oh my God.
The line breaks here are just a joy, right?
Damn.
The line breaks are so well done.
Brilliant.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Do it again.
Damn. Yeah, let's not discuss it. Let's just, everybody gets to read it once.
Yeah. Oh my God, that ending is so gorgeous. What the hummingbirds always knew.
Oh my goodness, brilliant. This poem. Yes.
Remember, on your most ragdoll of days, you are holy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jeez. Gold fusion sarcasm, the sun spraying you with dynamite.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It's so good.
It's so good.
I don't know. I love your oldest boy was less than 1. I don't know. I just love that because it reminds me of like all like the older women like sitting around talking about their oldest one.
Yeah.
Smallest grandbaby, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
Like flashbacks and stuff. So
and
I
what?
really love the language.
What an image is that too? That she doesn't, hating what your life had become, and she's having this gorgeous moment with her 1-year-old. Oh,
I hate to be like wicked technical, but look at the line break on the line that Sheree pointed out. Remember that day in summer when your oldest boy line break was less than 1, right? And you've got the sort of like, your oldest at this youngest moment, right? This sort of like arbitrage thing. It's freaking gorgeous, and it's on the line break.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's absolutely beautiful. Isn't it amazing that we're like, we don't even want to talk about it?
No.
We're just like, we'll talk and talk and talk and vote no. And then on this one, we're just like, all right.
Yes. Moving on. Yes.
Yes. Reading to myself every day.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. All right. Really, I guess maybe we've got one more. Are we all agreed that we're voting?
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's unanimous. Surprise!
Brilliant poem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope our listeners are appreciating this. This is all coming from one poet, and diversity of the work here and how much we're able to discuss this stuff. It's just great. Thank you, Marcia LeBeau. Thank you so much. And we've got one more from you. And I guess Sheree and Tim are the only two that haven't read.
I can read it.
All right. Tim's going to do it.
After you tell me you and your wife have an agreement, I want to talk about everything except your agreement here in my car where you're taking up too much space. I want to look at your knees knocking my glove box as the branches of the Norwegian maple vein the moon roof, and think about what you could have been if you had just kept your lips shut. I'll make an agreement with you. Open the door, walk into your house, and go lay on your Pottery barn bed beside your wife. Commune with her lips and toes and moan into the darkness. Be the kind of man who doesn't have an agreement, so that I wish you did.
There we go. You and your Pottery barn bed. All right. So this one is also, Marcia does like her long lines. They're long lines, 2 stanzas. The second stanza is the agreement. Open the door. And what do we think?
And it doesn't silly out.
It does not silly.
I feel like she stopped. For me, I like that this poem stops at the right place. And the lines, since I'm not a poet, I did kind of find it a little difficult, like reading Carr and then scanning back all the way to where. And I feel like if it was just a regular prose block, it would maybe read a little easier, but that's ticky-tack stuff. I mean, I like the images and I like the sentiment. I feel like the first half and second half harmonized well.
I would have that line, I want to look at your knees knocking my glove box as the branches of the Norwegian maple vein the moon roof, and think about what could have been if you just kept your lips shut. No punctuation, all of that power. I dig that line.
Yeah, I dig that line.
I dig that line.
I'm going to jump in and say I dig the line breaks. In that first stanza, it's really quite delicious, right? So I want to talk about everything except your agreement, comma, here in my car, right? Line break, where you're taking up too much space. I want to look at your knees knocking, which makes them sound afraid. You're like, your knees are knocking, but it's knocking against my glove box.
They're just knocking the glove box.
That's
right?
what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So you get that you're hung in this possibility of meaning, like you're just
right.
There. And then no, it's the glove box. And the same thing next, the branches of the maple vein, the moon. So you're thinking of the moon. Oh no, it's the moon roof.
Right.
That's lovely. The way that it, like the sort of scanning back to the beginning of the long line, you get the meaning shifts. That's really elegantly done, I'd say.
Yeah. I like the flipping back and forth. Like, she's ready to be with this dude. Then he tells her about the agreement. And she's like, why didn't you keep your lips shut? Yep. If you had just shut up, we could have had our time. Yeah. But now I've got to say, go in that house and lay down with your bed in the Pottery barn wife. That's what you've just done.
Right. Because that would make you more desirable to me. Now go. Right.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Good. Yeah.
Ready to vote?
Jason, we didn't hear from Jason or Sheree. Jason, did his birthday soiree begin? He's gone.
Was the phone?
You can't hear me. I'm sorry. I was muted. I forgot I was muted. I was saying, Sheree, jump in.
Busy.
Your mouth is busy with those cherry stems. We know. But what do you think of this poem?
Well, I like that. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. That it ends on this idea that she would sleep with him as long as he's not allowed to. That, like, in telling her that he has the agreement, he loses the libidinal attraction that she would need to go through with it. That if he loved his wife exclusively, then like the openness of their marriage is what makes entering an affair entirely unappealing.
I had a different read. Because I don't think she says, and then I would have slept with you. She says, I would wish to sleep with you.
Oh, that like the possibility of enacting it is what turns her off, but the possibility of wanting it is erotic.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. If he had just kept his mouth shut about the agreement, then she wouldn't have known, right? And be the kind of man who doesn't have an agreement, so that I wish you did. I don't think that means then I would sleep with you if you were off limits. Should rather have the wish and the desire. Right?
I like your reading better.
What do you comments on the work itself? Oh, Sheree has to go to class. You got to vote before you go. Just tell me.
Sheree.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. She gave me her vote.
Bye.
And she's going to class. See you later.
Have a great day.
Bye.
So, are there other comments? We're really done?
Let's vote.
All right. All right. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, vote. Wow, that had the most dramatic tension of any of the poems, but it's in. It's in.
Great.
Wow. All right. Way to go.
Congratulations. All right.
All right, Marcia, 2 and 2. That's pretty damn good, I'd say. With us, with our crew, Marcia LeBeau, thank you so much for your work. Does anybody on the team have anything they'd like to say before we wrap it up?
Happy birthday to you. That's what I have to say. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have so much to do over the summer. In fact, I want to plan a PBQ BBQ. So, I really don't think it's too early, because with Tim traveling and everything too, we've got to find a date that everybody's in the country.
Awesome.
So we'll invite all the listeners as well. Oh shoot! Earlier I told them. Oh, I only told them my office address, not my home address. If they showed up for a barbecue here, that would be tricky. But anyway,
I would like to encourage listeners to, with all the talk about the president's budget and what's going to happen in the NEA and everything that we like that the government spends money on, to, when you're reading a literary journal and you find an author with a story or poem you like, try to buy the book. Once a year, buy a book. Because because the only way that writers can keep writing is if people are buying the books. That's the only way to make it sustainable.
Amen.
So, it's not like everyone has to go out and buy a box full, but if people just go out and buy a book or two a year, every once in a while, give them as present to bring.
Give them as gifts. That's what I was just going to say.
When you go to someone's house, either bring a bottle of wine or bring a book. People love books. They like getting a book, and it keeps the ship afloat.
And,
There you go.
Don't forget to support your library. Use your library.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and ask your libraries to buy the books of the authors you like.
Yeah.
I love
right.
you people. I love you people.
Well, that's why we'll have a PBQ, BBQ, and we'll just hug each other the whole time.
That's perfect. I love it.
All right. Well, listeners, please tell us what you think of this episode, of the podcast in general, all that stuff on Facebook. Follow us on all social media platforms, and keep reading. Thank you. Woo!